Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to start off with a preface and go back to our last meeting. There was some discussion about additional time for this process. More information was requested. Some of the other governments referenced the challenge of reporting back to their boards under the calendar, and also to advise everybody that's on the call that since that time, the city has also contracted with a third-party TIF consultant to review the submittals and also to analyze the TIF, the tax increment financing district's capacity to address the funding requests of the other taxing districts. So there's still some work ahead of us. That being said, my thoughts for today is, first off, I'd like to continue the Joint Review Board deadline. I think we had 30 days from January 7th, and I would be looking to move that to, I think that third week of February, the week of February 22nd, maybe if we could have a date there. That'll give us a little bit more time, and it'll also give the third-party consultant. I can tell you who it is. It's we're presenting this to our council Monday night. It's Michael Lauby and Associates, and some of you may have worked with him before. He's quite a bit of experience in this area. And it's basically, it's a validation check. Jim Hess, you're on the call. Do you want to talk about the process that we need for that?
Yes, it's just simply to inform all of the taxing districts here present that per Joe's request, the date that we'd be looking to set this final JRB meeting would be outside of the 30-day statutorily required window for the JRB to issue a written decision. But the city has decided that we'll inform the JRB and its members that it will not seek to enforce any 30-day deadline that creates a presumption of the JRB's approval until at least the proposed final meeting in mid to late February is conducted. So the city will not be taking any type of presumption from the JRB and making a representation of a presumption of approval from the JRB to either the city council or at any public hearing. So just wanted to ensure all the board members knew that the city was going to not seek to enforce that 30-day limit and until at least after the final meeting is held in mid to late February.
And Jim, this also isn't going to change the city's clock on that because we can also continue the public hearing, correct?
Correct. It's the city's public hearing is currently set for February 10th. The city is currently under the belief that it will continue with that public hearing on that date, begin the public hearing, inform the members present at the public hearing as to what the status of the Joint Review Board is, and then continue that public hearing until a date out past the JRB's final meeting where it will issue its, hopefully make a vote and issue its decision on approval or non-approval.
So Jim, Aristotelianis here with a question, and Joe and Dan to you as well. You know, my only concern with that is that the statute says that if action is not taken by the JRB within 30 days, there's a legal presumption that the taxing bodies have approved the recommendation. Would it make sense, because the statute also says if it's a negative recommendation, it activates an additional 30-day period for discussion among the parties. Would it make sense if we're not going to go out until that first week of February, which is within the 30 days, to get a negative recommendation out of today's JRB, activate that 30-day period, and that keeps us within whatever Joe had said, February 22nd or something like that?
I believe that is possible. However, you know, the city would prefer that the JRB hold off on holding a vote until all the information is necessary, because if the JRB technically were to issue a negative vote today, it would have to issue a written decision as to why it did not approve. And it may just place some additional limitations on the city and the JRB as of what needs to be addressed at that next meeting. The hope would be that there could be an agreement amongst the JRB that in the city and accept the city's representation that it will not seek to enforce that. And the city will instead wait for the JRB's final approval or final decision and vote at that final meeting. That way we're not, the city's and the JRB is not quote unquote in a box as it relates to whatever's written in that written decision coming from a vote. We can hopefully address the issues, because then we're going forward with a negative vote, and based on my statute, it may place a limitation on the JRB then to issue another decision. If it looks at what the city presents at the final meeting, the JRB may be limited in issuing a negative decision and the city having that additional 30 days to come back to correct. So we're hoping to do this, it's an economy of time situation and proposal that the city is hoping to have the JRB agree to.
Can we, hi, it's Kathy Johnson. Can we agree to do something outside of compliance with statute? Because I'm just not sure that we can do that now. If there's some, that's why there's attorneys on this call. If there's some legal loophole that allows us to agree to do something that's not within statute, that's one thing. But otherwise, I would make a recommendation that we do take the vote, reset the clock, but the vote would be, that we have to vote either no or abstain so as not to pass it, only because we don't have enough information, at which point we can have Aries write that up to reset the clock, unless someone has a different idea. I'm just trying to make sure that we are in compliance and that we don't paint ourselves into some other, and I appreciate what you're asking, and that is to create the flexibility, and no one's trying to impede the flexibility. We're just trying to have enough information to bring forward to our boards. And at that same time, I want to make sure that we remain in compliance with all of the different pieces of statute. And I'm not sure that, we can, because this feels a little bit like a wink and a nod, and I appreciate why it is, and I want to help, but I also don't want to get myself boxed into a different corner somewhere, winking and nodding when I ought to be documenting in some way.
Yeah,
No,
Jim, so I
understood.
guess here's what I'm with Kathy on this, and I'll tell you why. What I'd rather do is we have under the original 30-day period until Friday, February 5th to take some kind of an action. So given that that's still 2 weeks out, I would rather you and I agree on something that the board could approve at a final JRB meeting the week of between February 1 and February 5. And the JRB then would approve further discussions or something where it would be a written acknowledgement that everybody's looked at ahead of time that this is how we're going to do it. We're kicking it out to the 22nd. The city agrees not to enforce the 30-day period. We all prove that, and then we're good until the 22nd. In the absence of something like that we've all looked at ahead of time, Jim, I would be reluctant to just do that now. I don't think that's going to cost the city anything. I think it still allows you to achieve your goals by having additional time for Lobby to look at this thing. If we did something like that today, kick it out to the 3rd or 4th or 5th, take that action then, and then move forward.
I understand the points, and that would be something I think would be more agreeable than just taking a vote. That way there may be some discussion and a written proposal as to what the, ahead of time, what the determination may be, so that all parties are on the same page when they meet in that last week of February. However, we'll all be under the same understanding that this meeting will likely carry over into the end of mid to late February for the additional information to be provided by the city.
That I am more comfortable with, Jim. If we could find a date, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th of February, to do those things before the 30 days run. I would prefer that approach. Are you looking for a motion, Joe, on something
No.
like that?
Sorry, Aries, I don't.
Response from Jim.
Yes? Sorry, I apologize. I just want to confirm, at this point, it's based on the meeting so far. I don't believe we've actually opened the meeting, so I'd feel more comfortable actually going through the process of opening the meeting so we can get some of this on the record and have this contained in the minutes and documented in minutes, so we're not running afoul of any requirements.
Okay, thank you, Jim. We'll rely on you as to the time and place to bring that up in the meeting. I thought that would be a preface just to give you a sense of what has happened since our last meeting. But also for today, it's worthwhile to go through the agenda. I think there are a few informational points were requested from the last meeting that ready for presentation. So we might as well just start. Karen, a call to order. If I may ask you now for introduction of representatives and roll call, please.
Okay, thanks, Joe. I have Amar Risky, the CFO, Cook County. If you're present, just say yes, please. All right, Damon Howell, Controller of Cook County Forest Preserve. Regina Stapleton, Financial Director, Wheeling Township. Joe Wade, City Administrator.
Here.
Okay. Amy McPartland, Assistant Superintendent, District 23.
Here.
Kathy Johnson, Associate Superintendent of Finance, District 214.
Here.
Robert Gallick, Executive Vice President, Harper College.
Here.
Christina Ferraro, Executive Director, Prospect Heights Park District. Okay. Alexander Todd, Executive Director, Prospect Heights Public Library District. Okay. Mary Ann Boyle, Treasurer, Metropolitan Water Reclamation. William Kearns, Prospect Heights Resident Representative.
Present.
James Fenish, Northwest Mosquito Abatement District. Those are the names I have.
All right, thank you, Karen. The minutes are not completed, is that correct?
No, the minutes are here. There are some, I do have a couple of corrections from what I sent out. I did send out the minutes.
Oh, okay. So, and I'm sorry, I thought Jim was reviewing them. So are they ready for voting, or?
They're ready for vote, but I did have some amendments made to them where William Kearns has to be added to who was present. It says agenda instead of minutes. I'll change that. And also the correct title for the for Ms. McPartland is Assistant Superintendent, and also Mr. Delianis is the representative for District 23 and 214. I will add that all to the minutes.
Okay. Are there any other additions or corrections from the floor? And if not, we will entertain the motion for approval of the January 7th minutes.
Bill Kearns, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Who is the second, please?
I'm sorry, Kathy Johnson.
Okay, that's a roll call. So it will be City Administrator Wade.
Yes.
McPartland.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Gallick.
Yes.
Kearns.
Yes.
And I believe that's everyone who's here.
Smith, Prospect Heights Fire,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, sorry, okay. Okay, thank you.
And item 4,
Can I interrupt? This is Ann. Christina, I don't think anybody heard you to mark you as present. Your volume is not working. Just a note.
Okay, I did not see, yes, I did not, she's not. Okay, so she is present.
okay, thank you, Karen. Item 4, approval of the agenda for this date, January 19th. Is there a motion to approve it?
So moved, Kathy Johnson.
Second, McPartlin.
Thank you. Karen, would you please call the roll?
Wade,
Yes.
McPartlin,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Gallick,
Yes.
Ferraro,
He's saying yes, it looks like.
okay, Smith,
Yes.
Kearns.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Item 5, follow-up to questions from the January 7th, 2021 JRB meeting regarding proposed TIF district. And Ann, I believe you had some follow-up information to what was brought up at the last meeting?
Yeah, I think the question that I was asked to share our methodology for coming up with the student generation numbers, and then the methodology for calculating the dollar amount pursuant to the TIF Act. Is that would this be the appropriate time to walk you through our analysis?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Oh, it says the host disabled participant screen sharing. If whoever is the host can enable that, I will share. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okie doke. Are you seeing my spreadsheet right now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So what we did was used a multiplier approach to determining the number of students that will be generated from the 69 unit development. And what you can see at the top of the screen is the source that we used. We used a multiplier study for Illinois that was completed by Rutgers University, dated 2006, and it included multipliers broken down in total and then by these different grade groups: primary, middle, what do you call? Well, I'm not even sure what you call middle school. So K through 2, 3 through 6, 7 through 9, 10, 12, and then 9 to adjust for the schools that end at 8, K through 8. So and the multipliers in the study adjusted or were based on prices. So we looked at the single family attached 2 and 3 bedrooms and then adjusted for inflation. And these are the multipliers that were used. So we broke those out based on 35 and 34 2 and 3 bedroom units respectively. This is down here in the middle section of our grouping is the breakout. We did it a couple different ways. We looked at the total multiplier using these total numbers. Actually, the total numbers here. And then we also looked at it by grade in this grouping. And the results over here are once you multiply out the units by each of the multipliers, you get the number of students that will be generated by unit, by district in totals. And so we did it 2 different ways to see, because they come out a little differently. It's 11.6 if you use the combined multiplier, and it's 12.3 students if you break it down by grade. So in our analysis moving forward, we use the higher amount. And then down here at the bottom, because some buildings will be built and potentially occupied, we looked at sort of a prorated or an interim occupancy sort of analysis for those years when the development is ramping up. And this is really intended to just give us sort of the truest estimate of students that will be generated and then the costs associated with that. And then the second page here, we call it capital cost estimates, but really school generation estimates. According to the TIF Act, the methodology requires you to identify the per capita tuition charge minus the evidence-based funding from the state and based on their calculation. And then you get your annual per student capital cost. So what you hear, the math here is simply, we use the most recent per capita tuition charge that was available, and our source over here is the Illinois State Board of Education. And those numbers for each school district are here. We followed the evidence-based funding formula according to the same ISBE, and came up with the evidence-based funding, a dollar amount per student. So the number that we would be multiplying times the students generated is simply A minus B equals C. So in these, you can see in this case, it's 13,415 minus about 1,200 and gets you to 12,185 per student. And the same math for District 214. We multiplied that times the number of students generated by 2 and 3 bedrooms to get us our annual cost of 99, almost 100,000 for elementary students, and that's at full build out, and 49,000 based on the number of students for the high school, for a total of about 150,000. This little section down here is the parameters that the TIF Act puts on a district depending on per capita tuition charges based from 1995-96. This we keep that for our reference, but it doesn't apply here. This is our best. This is what we feel is the best estimate of what the number of students that will likely be generated by the development. And so then we translate that over to our incremental tax analysis. And this is sort of you can see here some sort of the math, so to speak, for how we get to the incremental EAV, which is columns O and P in this, the incremental revenue, which is column Q is for the project, and then column R is for the single family, that includes the single family homes that are developed just north of the site that are already existing. So what we've done here is to try to identify what we think the capital cost based on the TIF Act will generate or will require. And you can see this $149,185 amount ties back to the number on the previous page. And so we've extrapolated out over the course with 2% inflation on those numbers down through the remainder of the TIF. And then we took just the simple percentage. What does that translate to in terms of the percent of the project that's going to be generated? As sort of a counter argument or a counter, we've identified what the upper cap is on the according to the TIF Act, which is 27 for the elementary, 27% of IPT for the elementary student, 13% for the high school students, for a total of 40%. And this is the dollar amount that would come out of the project IPT if, in fact, the if in fact the school maxed out in terms of net additional students. That's kind of the snapshot of our methodology. I recognize that schools project student generation in lots of different ways. So I'm happy to poke holes in this or answer any questions about it. We welcome your thoughts or your questions.
Hey, Ann, this is Eris here. First of all, thanks for putting this up. It is an overwhelming amount of information and a lot of numbers to digest. Would you be willing to send this out to at least the schools for us to look at and chew on it? Thank you so much. Yeah.
Sure. All right. If there, I guess if I'll stop sharing unless anybody else has any questions. And I'll throw it back to you, Joe. I'm also, okay, I guess I'll say I'm also open to, if you have any questions about the eligibility findings that we reviewed last time. I don't know if there's any questions there. Happy to answer any questions.
Any other questions for Ann? Did anybody have anything they wanted to review on the eligibility findings? Thank you, Ann. Okay, which brings us to item 6, review of proposed ordinances adopting the redevelopment plan, designating the redevelopment project area, and adopting tax increment financing. These were crafted by Tressler. Jim Hess worked on them. Jim, is there anything that you want to state about these?
No, nothing particularly at this point. I don't know if we want to table, further discussion until we get to a final meeting, or if this is something that everybody'd like to go over now. But I'm happy to, wait on this in case there is any discussions for amendments to them based on the additional information that we learn.
Any questions or comments for Jim? Thank you, Jim. Brings us to item 7.
Joe, I apologize. Just don't mean to cut off. We can hopefully resume item 7, but just in the interest of the previous discussions that we had regarding a future meeting date, does anybody on the call have an objection to including the items discussed as it relates to the continuation of a final meeting into the minutes as they are dictated later? Otherwise, we will probably just need to have that discussion again so they can be included. So in the interest of brevity, I think if we can all agree to include them in the minutes, we can move forward without having to have that discussion a second time.
Jim, are you talking about what we talked about before we actually got into the agenda, that information?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm fine if that's in the minutes. If the secretary can circulate those ahead of the meeting, that'd be good for us to review and comment on.
Okay, and then my thought is once we reach the portion, section agenda item 10, we can finalize those discussions, but I just wanted to make sure we had that covered.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Aries. Which brings us to item 7, public comment. Karen, is anyone presented for public comment?
I have not received anything.
Okay. Thank you. Item 8, deliberations. I have an open-ended area of the agenda. If there's anything that anybody would like to discuss. If there are none, we can go to item 9. And that's, we're not going to do that today. Jim, that brings us back to you. Item 10, scheduling additional meetings.
Yes, I think taking into account what was previously discussed, would ask for any further discussion on a resumed meeting, whether that be that first week of February or later in February. I think right now, based on that discussion, I think we're looking at that first week of February for a resumed meeting or continued JRB meeting.
Okay, and Jim, that's with the understanding it's a resume meeting, but we're still trying to move that deadline back to, sometime the week of the 23rd or so?
Correct, and in the interim,
22nd?
correct, in the interim, Aries and I can work together on crafting something that we can circulate prior to that meeting, so everybody has a chance to look at it and agree and vote on it at the next meeting.
Okay. Any other discussion of this? Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Jim. That brings us to other business, item 11. Any other items for discussion?
Sorry, Joe, if we can just go back to item 10, just as far as scheduling to a date certain, was there any proposals for date certain for that meeting at that first week of February? We can agree to that.
Okay. Well, the board, what's your pleasure? Is this, does this time work? We could do it on a Tuesday, February 2nd, 2 p.m. if that works for everyone.
That works
Or
for
if
me.
not, we can find another date.
Yeah.
Seems fine.
Okay,
2 p.m. the 2nd. You got that, Jim?
Yeah, I'm just double checking here quickly. I had the third circled as the best date, but let me just check real quick if the second can work. The second will work at 2 o'clock.
Okay, very good. And let's see, we need a motion for that, don't we?
Correct. We'd like a motion for the continuation of the meeting to the date certain.
So moved, Kathy Johnson, 2 at 2 p.m.
Second, Amy McPartlin.
Very good, thank you. Karen, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Wade,
Yes.
McPartlin,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Gaelic,
Yes.
Ferraro,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Kearns.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, very good. Anything else in this area, Jim?
I have nothing unless anybody has something for other business.
Okay. Item 11, other business. No items, brings us to 12. We'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved, Kathy Johnson.
Thank you.
Second, McPartlin.
Thank you. And Karen, would you please call the roll?
Kearns,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Ferraro,
Yes.
Gaelic,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
McPartlin,
Yes.
and Wade.
Yes. Okay, thank you, everybody.